All right, so we're having a little technical difficulties, but it looks like it's starting now. I'm going to talk to you today on a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. This is something that unfortunately I have personal experience with, and so this is something that I had to research. And the reason why I wanted to do this topic today is because I talk to every single person who follows me. Well, everyone who doesn't think I'm a bot. Some people, when they follow me, I DM them and they assume that I'm not a real person, and so they don't respond. But the ones who do respond, I ask them about their relationship status. And I have had quite a few women recently share things that is considerably disturbing. And what's more upsetting than the behavior itself is the fact that that is what they feel like they deserve, or that's where they feel like they should stay. So, in full transparency, that's the reason why I wanted to do this video. Normally, I do my shout outs and things like that, and ask everyone where they're watching from, which you're welcome to do. But I'm not going to be doing shout outs today because this is a little bit of a heavier topic. I do have people listening on YouTube or on Instagram. If you're listening on Instagram, please go ahead and come over to YouTube so that you can watch. Let me just get this thing set up here. Sorry, y'all, got all my equipment. Um, but go ahead and still say hello if you want, and I'll probably comment after the fact. But I just want to keep this focused on the seriousness of the topic. So I want to talk to you today about emotional abuse. This was something that I didn't even know existed until I started to experience certain things, and I went to Google. And you ever do one of those tests and you're like, whoa, I'm checking every single box. This is applying to me for sure. I didn't even know that term, emotional abuse. Of course, we know physical abuse. That's easy. Someone's putting hands on you, things like that. But emotional abuse is really a tricky situation because it typically happens subtly and it happens over time. And I don't think that there's one particular group of people who are more susceptible or not. I think people might think, well, if someone's younger, they're greener and they're more likely to have psychological abuse. But this can affect someone of all ages, no matter your background, your educational level. It just depends on how good, and I use obviously with air quotations, how good the abuser is. So I want to talk about this. And I think that it's something that really needs to be discussed a lot. So again, those of you watching on Instagram, please come on over to YouTube and join over here. So the first thing I want to say is um, over 10 years ago, there was a national survey done, and approximately half the people in the United States, the people were determined to have experienced emotional abuse at some point in their life by their partner. So this is something that affects a lot of people. A lot of times, if someone is going through something and they haven't decided to leave, they're not going to talk about it with their friends or family because they want to make that decision and not be pressured. And so this is something that a lot of people go through, suffer silently, and so I really want to describe it in detail to where you cannot watch this video and kid yourself into thinking that you're not an emotional abuse victim. Okay, so that's the purpose of this conversation. Please share this video with anyone you think would need to hear this. And even if you don't think that they're being abused, or you might not think that you're being abused, and you probably aren't if you're thinking that. But it's good to know for the future. It's good to know what the warning signs are so that if you start to get into something, you could see right away that this person is going to be a very dangerous person to be around. Because the longer you're around that person, the harder it is to walk away. As women, we bond and we tend to bond very quickly. We are very emotional creatures, which is a gift, and it can also be a curse in certain situations. So knowing these signs, it's really, really important. So especially my younger girls, please listen all the way through to this video. The other thing I want to note is that it doesn't always have to come from a romantic partner. It can come from a parent. It could be a boss at work. It could be a coworker. It could be a neighbor. It's anybody who tries to use psychological tactics to get their way. So, for example, the first one that comes to mind that a lot of parents do would be guilt tripping. Okay, maybe you made a decision for yourself, but it wasn't the decision that they wanted. And this person is used to getting their way. And so they are going to use guilt tactics. Maybe they're going to compare you to your sibling. Well, your sister always does this, or your brother does this for me. And they have a hard time with boundaries. A lot of things that I'm going to be talking about today, don't just limit yourself into thinking that, oh, this is only going to happen in a romantic situation. It's any relationship that you have. You want to be aware of these signs, okay? And so what happens eventually if you have these effects, obviously the physical abuse, that you can have a broken bone or you could have a black eye or bruising and things like that, or worse, internal injuries. What happens with emotional abuse is that your freedom eventually gets taken away. And I'm going to talk about this in more detail, what the effects are, but you lose your sense of individuality and you definitely lose your sense of self. Um, so I want you to understand, and also there are other terms that are used for this besides emotional abuse. There is, it could be called mental abuse or psychological abuse. And to define abuse, because some people would say, oh, these are just normal relationship things. Abuse is when the person is intending to hurt you, because we can hurt someone's feelings by accident, unintentionally. We can do that. But when a person is intentionally trying to manipulate you, they're trying to infect affect pain, inflict pain. I was like, wait, inflict pain. That is when it becomes abuse. I had a partner who, oh my word, if words were weapons, I would have been unalive now. But because they knew me so well, they knew how to pierce me to the core with their words. And I remember years later having a conversation with them and asking them about one particular thing that they said that really hurt deeply, and I carried it around like a badge of shame. And they kind of just looked and said, I don't even remember saying that particular thing, but when we were together, I would say anything I could to hurt you the deepest that I could. And it was so freeing. And I know most people are not going to get that confession from their, ex partner. But it was so freeing because I thought, wow, I was really giving weight to what this person said regarding this one aspect of my life. And I was carrying it around as this burden of shame. And it wasn't even true. But the other thing was, it was this final closure and confirmation that this person was just coming from a place of animosity and the words were not, rooted in truth. So, reason why a lot of abusers will do this is because they want to either exert control, they will want to take away your power, or they want to manipulate you into doing something that they want you to do. Or it could be like in my situation, that person is feeling away and they want you to feel away. There are times where you can disappoint somebody. There are times where your actions might hurt someone, again, unintentionally. But it doesn't mean that that is healthy for that person to retaliate. And this is why I advise women who have been on the receiving end of something that hurts them. I say, if you can't handle being in a relationship and moving on from that thing, walk away. Because you don't want to be outside of your character, right? You don't want to be that person that, oh, this guy cheated on me, so I'm going to cheat on him. Oh, he was a savage, so I want to see if I can be more of a savage. That's not a healthy way to live for either of you, especially if that person is turned a new leaf and they're trying to do the right thing and now they're having to live in the past. Or for you, now you're stepping outside of your character. So if you know you can't move forward from somebody messing up, because there are times someone really does mess up, you just got to be able to move forward. So I want to say this too. I have to get a lot of kind of disclaimers at the beginning. By the way, if you guys are enjoying this topic and this is content that you like, please hit that like button so YouTube knows to recommend it to other people. If you are in the chat box and you're on a cell phone, you'll have to close the chat box window and click the like and then come back. But it really helps a lot for me as a content creator for more people. This video in particular, I really wanted to get out to as many people as possible. I want you to know, if you haven't had a lot of relationship experience, it's normal for a partner to challenge you and, give you criticism. My guy and I, we're on a fitness journey and we both have weight that we want to lose. And I love my juice. And I know I shouldn't drink juice. You're just drinking calories. And so he might point something out like, hey, babe, you probably shouldn't be having that. That is a normal situation for a partner to kind of hold you accountable. What I'm about to describe is something completely different. You've heard the saying constructive criticism. Well, this criticism is not constructive whatsoever. Okay. And partners will say things like, toxic partners will say things like absolute statements. You never, or you always, or you only. It's these defining statements, like they are just describing you to your core and not just something that's happening in this moment. Okay. Those of you watching on Instagram, please come on over to YouTube. That's where the live stream is happening. So the first thing that they will do is shaming. Shaming is probably at the top of what abusers will do. They start to get into your head. They start to change the way you think about yourself, which is one of the biggest things that are the negative results that will come from this. But they want you to be ashamed of being you. I remember specifically, and I'm going to be very vulnerable in this video. I remember feeling like I was taking up space in the earth. I remember thinking over and over again that I was basically a stain to society, for society. I was not contributing because of the way this person made me feel. I felt like I wasn't contributing. I felt like the world would be better off without me. Just horrible, horrible things. Okay, so shame is a huge indicator. You should not feel shame. And going back to the example, the healthy example with my partner, I felt conviction. It's kind of like if you're a believer in Jesus Christ and you understand the scripture and it talks about there is now therefore no condemnation in Christ Jesus. The Lord and the Holy Spirit, they convict you. They make you, let me turn things around. They make you change your mind and feel nudged to go in a different direction versus the enemy will make you feel defeated. Well, you've already done this, so you're no good. You should just throw in the towel. There's no coming back for you. It's this very final, you should just be embarrassed of yourself as opposed to, let me do something different, right? So that's the difference. So in the case of the juice, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to buy any more juice. I won't even have it in the house. Let me make a plan of action. And I know that he wants the same thing that I want. I'm going to be really happy when I have my beach body. Okay. So shaming is definitely a sign. Shaming will make you feel like you're wrong for your decisions that you've made, the choices that you've made. And unfortunately, when you're really in a toxic situation, you start to lose your sense of up and down. It's like they say with pilots when you know you get disoriented sometimes when you're up in the air. It's the same thing in relationships. You can start to question whether or not you're good at making decisions. It was so bad that I felt like I couldn't make the most simple of decisions when I was in that situation. And my friends would ask me to make a decision. And they kind of look at me like, what? When I say, oh, I have to ask so and so. And it was because I didn't want to mess up or make the wrong decision. And I just questioned myself over and over and over again. Your partner might ask you things like, "Why would you do that?" They would target insecurities that you have, like if it's a body image, maybe they'll grab some fluff on your body, or maybe your hair is thinning, or whatever your thing is that you think you have a big forehead, and they're talking about your forehead. They're gonna shame you. They're gonna do anything that they can do to make you want to put your head down, so to speak. The next thing is blaming. Okay, this is a person who doesn't take accountability. Let's say that they're flipping out on you and you tell them, I don't like what you're doing, and they're going to flip it and blame you and say, well, you made me do it. I get pissed off when XYZ happens. So we're in this situation because of this. I broke that, or I punched that because of you. I punched the wall and broke my hand because you made me so angry. They're going to blame you for everything. It's flipping the switch. Okay. This is something that is definitely a red flag. A person should be able to take accountability. Even if your partner is upset, they should not escalate from 0 to 60. They should be able to say, hey, this is really problematic for me. Let's stop having this conversation. I'm really getting heated. I need to go for a walk, whatever. There should never be the excuse, well, you just made me so angry. I had to do X, Y, Z. The next one is criticizing. This is why I gave a disclaimer at the beginning. It's normal to give feedback. Hey, babe, I don't think we should be doing this right now because we're supposed to be tightening up our spending, or, like the juice example, to go back to it. Do you really want to be drinking those 150 calories when you just did a workout? That would be normal to, give a little bit of criticism or feedback. But when you are doing something that is just, you're trying to be cruel, you are tearing that person down, and there's nothing constructive to it. There's nothing you could take from it to become a better person. You're just being dumped on verbally. That would be criticism. Telling someone to shut up, they're in the middle of saying something and be quiet, shut up. I don't want to hear what you have to say. It's all of these would fall under emotional abuse. These are not things that a healthy partner would do, and you absolutely should not tolerate this. Not only is it terrible for you, but if you have children in the situation, whether you have children with that person or you just have children from a previous relationship, they're going to grow up thinking this is normal. Okay. A lot of stuff that people do erroneously, it's because they grew up thinking it is normal. Okay. So think about the kids too when I'm giving you these things and why they're so destructive for you. Little eyes are watching you. Okay. The next thing is guilting. This is a huge manipulation tactic. They'll make you feel like that you've let them down. Maybe they'll let you know that you should feel bad for them because they have you as a partner. I had someone go so far. This person that I'm talking about went so far as to say, oh, you think it's hard being with me? Well, if you had to live with yourself, you would have unalived yourself by now. That's how terrible it is living with you as a person. They will guilt trip you. They will make you think that you're a disappointment. They will want you to change whatever behavior you're doing because they don't want you to do it in the future. So again, it's them trying to force their way on you. Versus in a healthy relationship, a partner will say, "Hey, I really don't care for this. Would you consider XYZ?" They're going to give you what they think, but it's going to be on you to make a decision. They're not going to have to use a tactic to get you to change the behavior. And it's on them to leave if they don't like being around you. That's the other thing. If you're such a terrible person, why are they with you? Okay. Hello to all the new people who just came in. If this is something that you want more people to see, please tap that like button because then YouTube will suggest it to other people. And this is something I think a lot of women should listen to. And I say women because women are my target audience, but I want to make the statement that this happens to men as well. Men are victims of emotional abuse and physical abuse. And so nobody is, anyone is susceptible to this. So if I use the female pronouns, it's not to be dismissive. It's just because that's who I'm talking to. Okay, but guys, if you're listening, you do not deserve that as well. I cannot stand to hear people putting their partner down. It's horrible. So where are we? Guilting. Then we have humiliation. This is just outright horrible. But there are people who get off on humiliating their person in public. And they will try, it's all part of shame and all that. But it's in front of other people, they are going to talk down on you, they are going to be condescending, they are just not going to treat you in a respectful way, and they're going to do it around other people. And again, it's hoping that it's going to discourage you from doing certain things in the future, or you're going to want to do whatever they say because you want to avoid being humiliated in front of other people. They're going to degrade you. They're going to try to make you feel less than human. And being humiliated doesn't have to just be in front of other people. It could be doing things in front of just them. There is a singer who is now locked up. But when it came out in his trial, there were a lot of things that he did to these women that were very, very, very degrading. And all of it is just breaking you down to feel like you are less than, you don't deserve. Because if you're confident and you feel like you don't deserve this, you're going to want to walk away. So they have to strategically break you down little by little into making you feel grateful for what you are getting from them. Okay, you're so lucky that they're sticking around to be with you because you're so terrible. All right, it's this sick, sick game. Another thing is ridiculing. This is name calling. A lot of times people will use jokes and sarcasm to say what they're really feeling. Okay, going back to, let's say, even insecurity, maybe you feel like your forehead is too big. They're going to constantly poke at that. If maybe they're making pig noises when you go to eat because they know that you're feeling insecure about your weight. A partner who is healthy would never, ever, ever, ever want to tear you down. And I've always said this to partners. I'm very sensitive to name calling, especially because of what I've gone through. But I think that a lot of times, especially in our community, we're big on the jokes. You have to be able to be quick with the comebacks and things like that. But a lot of times something doesn't land as a joke unless there's truth behind it, right? If it's so outlandish, it's not really funny. And I think we have to be really careful because you have no idea what somebody is struggling with or insecure about. But you'll get eaten alive if you show any weaknesses. So you have to just joke back. But I think that's something that we could really benefit from backing off a little bit in our community. Being dismissive, okay? When you are sharing your thoughts, they don't care. It's like, keep that to yourself. That's why they could tell you, shut up, be quiet. I'm not interested. Or if you do point something out about them, they're just going to flip it back on you and say, oh, well, you made me do it. I wouldn't act like this if you were a better girlfriend or a better wife, or maybe if you knew how to cook or keep the house clean, I wouldn't be doing X, Y, Z. So they're very dismissive of what you have to say. They don't care what you have to say because there's no plan to change their behavior. They don't think that they have any behavior that they need to change because, again, they're doing you this huge, giving you a gift by being with you. Okay. And I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's just, it's sad. Um, Accusing you. Okay. This is kind of the same thing as blaming. They're going to want you to be a people pleaser. And again, like I said before, this isn't always just, um, with a romantic partner. This could be a parent, it could be a teacher, I hope not, a boss, something like that, siblings. They can accuse you of something that you didn't even do. So let's say, for example, they're constantly saying that you're cheating on them. You might stop doing things that you would normally do just because you don't want to be accused. Maybe you enjoy being on social media and taking pictures and things like that. But now, because anything I do, they're going to accuse me, you stop doing things. They want to completely control. Nicole says, I've experienced emotional abuse. He shamed me in an attempt to control me. Thank God I came to myself and left that relationship. Thank you for sharing, Nicole. Do you mind sharing how long you were in it? Because I don't think that unless people have been in a situation, they don't realize how hard it is to separate from somebody, especially if that person has moments of being great. Usually people who are manipulative know how to be great. So what they'll do is they'll do things that are great, and then it's just terrible, 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 great, terrible, 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 and then the abused person will hold on to that memory of the great thing, and they'll dream about the next great moment, and they'll hold on, clinging to that hope. It doesn't make sense to people who have not been in it, but if you're in it, there's this thought that if I can just alter my behavior, because of course they're going to say it's all their bad behaviors predicated on your bad behavior. I could just change my behavior. I can get more of those good spikes. Okay. It's very sad. This one is huge, and this is probably the biggest one I experienced. Um, it's neglect. Okay. Uh, when your emotional needs or your physical needs aren't met, this can be a form of neglect. And a lot of times, partners will use the silent treatment. Okay. They're going to withhold conversation from you, they're going to give you dry, bland answers. They are going to definitely not be affectionate. They're going to act like you're not there. Okay. It's very, very, very traumatizing. She said it was too long. It was about a year. We were talking about getting married. I'm so happy I didn't make that huge mistake. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because you don't have to, especially in a public setting. But thank you. It's easy to fall into it, especially if the person is gradual and showing their devil horns. And it's hard to get out. It really is hard to get out. And I want to speak to that woman who is in the situation. You're making excuses. You are downplaying it in your mind, saying, well, it's not really that bad. Maybe I'm making too big of a deal of it. No, you're not. You absolutely do not deserve this. Okay. Um, those of you watching on Instagram, please come over to YouTube. We got video over here. And also they help out content creators on YouTube. So if you can come on over, it'd be great. The next thing is monitoring. Okay. This is for somebody, especially who's always accusing you of doing something. Monitoring. You do not feel like you have any privacy in this situation. They're going to be going through all of your messages, looking at your social media. They're going to show up to events that you're attending that they weren't invited to. And not because you're doing something wrong. It's just maybe it's a work event. It's not something that partners are coming to, or maybe it's girls' night. They don't trust you. And so they're going to be monitoring you, and you're going to be just paranoid that there's going to be anything that they see that they think is a sign of, infidelity or lying or whatever. Verbal berating. This is definitely something I have a lot of experience with. It's verbal attacks, uh, putting you down, disparaging you, yelling. Yelling is huge. For me, I am so sensitive to yelling because there's no need to have your voice being raised. It's just there's not a need to. And so if somebody is yelling, I'm not saying that they're an abuser, but you should definitely let them know that doesn't work for you. And if they continue to be a yeller, then you have the choice to walk away. You should always be treated with respect. And you can't expect every single person to know what your particular boundaries are. But as you get to know each other and you let the person know, hey, this is a boundary that's been violated, if they don't take mental note, then you need to move on because that's the reason you have a boundary is because it takes you out of your place of peace. Some people grew up in families where they yell. And if you're with two partners who are used to yelling, like I know there are certain cultures, they just get very animated to that person, it might not be a problem. Like, what are you talking about? I didn't even know she was yelling. I didn't know he was yelling. I'm not worried about that. Both people don't care, that's fine. But if one person is uncomfortable with the yelling, that is an issue and it should be addressed. You also have to deal with mood swings. You ever been with somebody who is like this? It is like walking on eggshells. They might ask you to pass the salt and pepper, and you're like, oh God, let me get it right because God forbid I do the wrong thing and it's going to ensue in a 40-minute, tirade and just it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Um, some of the things that can happen. One of the things I say this before I move forward. I remember talking to somebody about emotional abuse, and that person kind of just downplayed it. Fortunately, I didn't know them well at all. It was just a conversation, I think, online, but they were kind of downplaying it. But what they don't understand is that emotional abuse it's connected to your mind. And when we are under stress, God created us in the most magnificent way. There is such a connection between mind and body that if you have enough of an emotional and mental toll, it can start to have physical symptoms. For me, I cried all the time. There's a difference between you're feeling sad and you cry versus uncontrollable crying. I remember one time I was about to go to the grocery store. It was like a normal day, and it just like how a sneeze comes over you. It was just like that. I just couldn't stop crying, and there wasn't an incident that happened right before. That's what freaked me out, and I ended up going to seek help because I was like, this is now uncontrollable. I felt fatigued all of the time. Fatigued. Not like I'm lazy, I don't want to get out of bed. I felt like someone drained the life out of me and I couldn't even open my eyeballs. It was so hard to get things done. I remember just feeling like I was in mud and trying to run. I remember vividly being at the kitchen sink and I just couldn't even do the dishes because it was like, I'm trying to think how to describe it in a way that would make sense to someone who hasn't gone through it. When you are depressed, the most minuscule tasks seem so huge. Washing those dishes in that moment felt to me like someone said, I need you to climb Mount Everest and then swim across the ocean and then solve, all the world's problems. It was just, it's just a lot. I felt so sluggish. And then you feel guilty because you're not keeping up with your stuff. And it's just this vicious cycle. She said emotional abuse can escalate also. I feel eventually this person would have physically abused me. Absolutely. Absolutely. That statistically has been proven. I was fortunate to have never had hands laid on me, but I was actually surprised because the level of anger and when you are a woman and you're physically smaller than the guy, especially if it's a big guy or muscular or tall, it's very intimidating having someone yelling and shouting when they're towering over you, even if they're not touching you. It's a very scary feeling that you feel like this could escalate in any second. Um, I remember my partner was going to be coming home from a trip one time, and they'd been gone for 2 weeks, and I didn't realize how much peace I had with them being gone. And the day they were supposed to come back, I happened to be on the phone, and I just started hyperventilating. I was like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And the person on the phone put two and two together, and they said, I think you're aware that they're coming home tonight, and it's taking over. It's having an effect on you. I would have anxiety attacks. I used to give my best friend a hard time growing up because she had really bad anxiety attacks. We knew each other as teens, and I was very dismissive. I regret it now looking back. But when I had my first anxiety attack, she was the first person I wanted to call and say, I am so sorry. It feels like an actual heart attack. Your chest starts hurting, you have shortness of breath. And when your heart starts racing, you panic because your heart's racing, which makes you panic even more. And it's just this really scary thing. So I had to learn because I just refused to get on medication. They prescribed it to me, but I hate taking even like Tylenol or anything. So I wouldn't take it. And I had to learn how to just breathe through my anxiety. But years after leaving him, years, I still had anxiety attacks. And I would say I'll probably maybe have like one a year or something like that. But it's very lingering. It can be very lingering, the effects. Those of you listening on Instagram, come on over to YouTube. Just type in Chasing Yonci, and you can see the actual live stream and join the chat we have going here. Thank you to everyone who's hit that like button so far. I'm telling you, it's not for my vanity. It's because YouTube goes off of the likes to see if it's something they should recommend to other people. It's however long you watch and the likes. So if you guys like and comment, it really helps a lot. This is the type of stuff I think more people should be seeing. There's a lot of toxic stuff out there, but I think this could really save somebody. So I talked about anxiety attacks, hyperventilation, oversleeping, crying spells, depression. If you guys had any physical symptoms and you care to share, drop it in the comments. But it's really, really scary. For me, I was at my breaking point and I had very dark thoughts because, like I said, I felt like there's no reason for me to be here. I'm just taxing, society by being here. And I wanted to check out. And so I actually went to seek mental help. I voluntarily went. And the physician who saw me said, I cannot say this on the record, but you just need to be out of that relationship. Like there isn't a physical problem. Um, and what's so crazy is, and I saw God's hand in all of this, when I went to go, I ended up staying for 7 days, packed my bag. Everyone else was there, like not willingly, not voluntarily. So they came in whatever clothes they had, didn't have any products, whatever. I came in with a full suitcase. I don't know why I brought heels, but I had my heels, my dresses, my makeup, my hair. And I ended up doing women's hair because as they were getting better, you want to feel like yourself. And as I got to talking to all these women who are being diagnosed with bipolar and all this stuff, bipolar disorder, which I'm not knocking and saying that doesn't exist, but a lot of these women who are being labeled as having these mental health issues, guess what the one thing they had in common? Relationships that went sour. Every single woman I talked to was in an unhealthy relationship. Okay. And again, this is not bashing men. I'm talking to women. There are men who have been and are in unhealthy relationships as well. So just putting that out there. Candy says, yes, the physical symptoms are real. I developed hormone problems and my acne became worse than it ever was. My cortisol levels went way up. I cried, especially after sleeping with him. I cried a lot, especially after sleeping with him. It's a real thing. It is a real thing. And I think that you guys who are commenting are so brave to share because a lot of times these are not things that, we're happy to talk about. Like I don't talk about my emotional breakdown, my mental health issues that I went through, but it's necessary for us to talk about it so somebody else out there can recognize, one, I'm not alone, and two, this is absolutely not okay. I'm so grateful that I at least had the Google search that I did, but I wish I had a community and people that I could talk to because it's a very shameful thing. And I remember going to a family member and saying, hey, I'm being emotionally abused. And the first reaction was, whoa, 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 that's a big word. That's a heavy accusation. And not a rushing to my aid and saying, is this not okay? This is not okay. You don't deserve this. It was terrible. Psychologically, these are some of the effects. Like I mentioned earlier, you're going to have a lot of fear, walking on eggshells. You should never feel fear in a relationship. Maybe you messed up, right? Maybe your husband told you like, don't shop anymore. And then you went crazy on Amazon and now you have this nervous feeling in your stomach because you're about to get, fussed at. That would be a normal thing because you did something, right? Or you crashed the car and you're a little nervous of his reaction or her reaction. That's normal. You should not be living in fear. You should not be every day stressed out, wondering what your partner is going to say, what they're going to do. And you definitely should not be walking on eggshells. You should feel like you can express yourself. You should feel like your partner is going to listen. You should feel like your partner has your best interest in heart. And you should feel like your partner genuinely feels remorse if they do something unintentionally that hurts you, and that they're going to try their best to alter their behavior so that they don't repeat that again. Another psychological effect is you're going to have super low self esteem. You are going to feel like you are just undesirable in every way, socially, physically, sexually. You're just going to feel like a piece of crap. So if you didn't feel like a piece of crap before your relationship and now suddenly you feel like a piece of crap, pretty big red flag, pretty big sign that you are in an abusive relationship. Okay. You lose your sense of identity. Like I mentioned earlier, it's harder to make decisions. You don't know who you are. You're questioning yourself. You feel like everything has to be seen through the eyes of the other person, which leads me to the next one. You start to feel dependent or codependent. Like you feel like you can't function in life without this person. And that's something that they're going to psychologically do, like a drip, drip, drip effect. You can't make it on your own. You won't make enough money on your own, or you don't have people to lean on. I'm the only one who can help you, right? They'll try to isolate you from other people so that you're only dependent on them. Because the more people you have in their life, the more people you have in your ear, negating the crap that they're telling you. So they don't want other people around who can, you know, put you back on the right footing. And then, of course, shame. We talked about that before. You definitely going to feel shame. So if you are feeling those things, this is your absolute sign to leave. It's not a coincidence that you are watching this. If somebody sent this to you, that means that they care about you and they love you. You need to take the steps to get out of the situation. You deserve better. And I want to put a little asterisk over the better part, right? You might think, well, if I had better, I would leave. Don't wait to have something better before you leave, because it is better to be single and at peace than to not have peace in your own home. I'm going to say it again. It is better to be single and have peace than to be with someone where you can't have peace in your own home. It is a scary thing, especially if you're somebody like me who loves love. I absolutely love love. I've wanted to be married since I was a kid. That was huge. I just wanted to be a wife and a mom and have all the things. And the idea of starting over was so scary. The fear of the unknown was so scary. So many things that I had going through my mind that I had to try to weigh it out. And at the end of the day, I said, I need my peace. And I just remember when I was finally on my own again after this situation, there were times I would just come home to my place. Of course, I had way less, tiny little apartment. I would come home and just literally hug the wall. Okay, it was kind of like a corner like that. I would just hug the wall and be like, oh, this is my safe place. This is my sanctuary. This is my peace. Everything about that place said peace to me. When I lay down at night, I'm not crying. When I wake up in the morning, I'm not anxious, stressed out that I have a whole another day that I have to get through. It's just different. No amount of stuff or experiences or money was worth not having my peace. Okay, so I hope that you will get out of that situation. Obviously, I am a dating coach, but I work a lot with women when it comes to the emotional stuff like this. If you need someone to speak to, you can obviously reach out to a therapist, a counselor. But if you need me, slide at my DM on Instagram. That's how you can reach me the best. I would absolutely love to help you, because having gone through this myself, not something that I learned in a class to go out and do this professionally, I know what it feels like. I know the thoughts that go through your mind. I also believe in spiritual warfare. Okay. I'm going to talk faith for a second, y'all. The Bible talks about a spirit of fear, a spirit of heaviness, a spirit of love. And so I do believe that a lot of this negative stuff is spiritual. And you can attack it from a therapy standpoint, but you can also attack it from a spiritual standpoint. And so there was serious prayer that I did. I went through my house and cleansed my house. Anything I felt was not godly, anything I felt was not going to bring me closer to the Lord, I prayed against. I rejected anything that was not of Him. And I'm telling you, I felt a difference. I was like, I don't want a spirit of desperation. I don't want to feel the need to have a guy in my life. I want the man that you have for me. And there was not a quick turnaround. For me, there were almost 10 years between walking away from an unhealthy relationship and being in now the most loving relationship I've ever been in. It's not even a comparison. And I don't want it to seem like you have to go from one thing to the other, which is why I'm bringing this up. But I do want to encourage you that the right man is going to be so compassionate. He's going to be so caring. He's going to be considerate of your feelings. And if you've had a history of unhealthy relationships, it's going to just be so delicious when you experience it. Because I think healthy people, they're just like, oh, this is nice. When you've gone through what someone like me has gone through, when you have a loving partner, you just want to shower them with love and let them know how much you appreciate them. You never take them for granted. And so I just pray that this video gets into the right hands. YouTube, do what you need to do. Get it to the right people. But if you have any of these signs, you definitely should not be in that relationship. And I have to say this before I close. If there is physical abuse, this is not something I'm qualified to discuss. Physical abuse is a whole nother animal. And so when I say leave and do it immediately, I am talking about a situation where your life is not being threatened. Okay. This is just an a-hole that you're with, somebody who is just really, really mean and manipulative, not talking about somebody who's going to put your life in danger, possibly your children, your family, what have you. If you feel like your physical life is in danger, you need to seek resources accordingly. You need to talk to somebody who is familiar with that. They can get you out of that situation in a healthy way, because you don't want to trigger that person. So I am in no way qualified to give advice on physical abuse. Okay. But emotional abuse, unfortunately, I got that covered. Okay. Been there, done there, got the t-shirt, and I'm ready to burn the t-shirt. If you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know. Please let me know if it was helpful. And again, if you have not received any of these signs, you haven't been in a situation like that, thank God, first of all, good. But be on the lookout for these things to happen because, like I said, it's a slow burn. It's a gradual thing. It's kind of like that old saying, how do you boil a frog? Very slowly, right? You just slowly increase the temperature because no, frog is going to stay in boiling hot water. That's the same thing with abusers. They'll try to get away with a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. If you let it slide, eventually the disrespect gets greater and greater and greater. And now their emotional fangs are in deeper and it's harder to walk away. All right. So let me know where you guys are tapped in from. Like I said at the beginning, I didn't want to do a lot of shout outs because I wanted to keep the soberness of this topic and do some respect to it. But if you want to drop your city and state, I will respond after the fact. Nicole said this was a great conversation. I pray it helped someone. Absolutely, I do too. She said thank you. And to those of you who are still on Instagram, despite my request to come to YouTube, come on over to YouTube and give it a thumbs up if you wouldn't mind, so that YouTube knows that you listen to the content. All right, guys, until next time, have a blessed day. And I'll see you guys out here on these social media streets.